Sorry.
Okay. So, yeah, so for me, shamanism is nothing that's extraordinary. It's really reconnecting with who we already are, the gifts we already carry, the connection with Mother Earth and with the elemental forces that are all around us. It's just that we have subconsciously narrowed ourselves down, our abilities, our sensitivities, our focus, so that we become aware of a very, very small segment of what you're actually capable of perceiving. So, the shamans talk about the three worlds. They talk about the middle world, which is what we normally call reality. This is where most people hang out. Um, it's a one-dimensional world, or what people call third dimensional. So we have certain perceptions of time and space and reality. Time moves in a straight direction from the past into the future. And our sense of who we are is very limited. So we perceive ourselves as um, somehow contained within a human body. Um, Whereas the truth is that the human body is contained in who we are. Everything is contained in who we are. Everything that we're capable of perceiving that seems to be outside of us is actually inside of us, because who we are is much vaster than this tiny little fragmented human hologram that we tend to identify with. So this hologram that we perceive with our limited physical senses and that we process using the rational mind is what the shamans call the middle world. And then they talk about the upper world and the lower world. And in some traditions, the upper world represents the forces of spirit. So your ability to access different dimensions through dreams, through visions, through psychedelic experiences, or just by training yourself to expand further out. The lower world, some people define as the connection with Mother Earth, the worlds of nature. And all three of these, when they're synchronized together, when they're unified together, is who we are. So we're not just spirit, we're not just human, and we're not just elemental beings. What defines us is the ability to harmonize these aspects. So some of you may be familiar with the Hawaiian kahuna tradition, where they talk about the high self, the middle self, and the low self, similar in some ways. And the high self is the angelic aspect of us. The middle self is the human aspect of us. And the low self is the elemental aspect of us. And most of us tend to only, focus in a very small, fragmented world of reality, the middle world. And it's a world of separation, it's a world of duality. And because we imagine ourselves to be stuck in this limited, fragmented reality, we bring upon ourselves all kind of suffering, fear, victimization. And as a result of that, we treat each other from a space of feeling less than, of feeling limited, of feeling fearful. And that's the recipe for creating disaster. And we've created enormous amounts of this disaster on so many levels for so many years. And it's time now to break out of that collectively. So these shamanic practices that I want to share with you tonight, and the perspective behind that, is not just for our personal self. It's not just for our own journey in this one incarnation. It's part of what I see as a collective awakening. Because together we are entering into a time that has been foreseen for a very long time, through ages and ages, um, of human incarnations, earth incarnations, and it's a time of transition. So what many shamanic traditions, prophetic traditions, mystical traditions all around the world have been saying is this is the time of transition. In India, they talk about the movement from the Kali Yuga through Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, and finally to Sat Yuga. This is the cycle we are entering into. The Incas talk about Pachacuti. This is a time of upheaval. Even the Christian book of Revelation talks about the apocalypse, which basically means turning upside down. So it's not necessarily something that has to be destructive, even though some people interpret it that way. It's really about turning something upside down. The truth is we've been upside down for a very long time. So it's really more about turning ourselves right side up. And how does that happen? It's by reconnecting with these three worlds, with these different layers of reality, and recognizing that they're not as separate as we think. Some of you may be familiar with the Hermetic principles. As above, so below. As within, so without. What that basically means is that everything is a hologram. What a hologram means is that everything is inside everything else. Everything is part of everything else. Everything reflects everything else. And that is who we are. It's not something the rational mind can understand. And it's not supposed to. The rational mind isn't here for those deeper questions. It's simply here to navigate through the realities of third-dimensional worlds. But as we begin to understand these higher principles, these more expanded realities, then we can actually enter into a co-creative relationship with life all around us, with nature, with each other, with the earth herself, as a living being. So what I'd like to do to start this conversation is maybe a definition of what this earth means. What is this earth? And it's very similar to the question about who am I? Am I just this human body, this appearance, this third-dimensional physical hologram that thinks that it's a human? It's the same thing, exactly the same thing with the earth. Is it just the physical body of the earth? The forests and the trees, the oceans, the lakes, the rivers, the different centers of civilization that exist upon her. So in the shamanic understanding, that's just one aspect of the earth, just as this is just one aspect of being human. So there's subtle bodies within the earth. There's emotional bodies, there's mental bodies, there's soul bodies or causal bodies. And as we connect with those aspects within ourselves, we also begin to connect with those aspects of the earth. So when the shamans talk about Mother Earth, it's more than just a metaphor. It's an experience with a living consciousness. It's a recognition that she is alive. She is far more than what we perceive with our physical senses. And the shamanic path is about learning to expand the perceptions, connect more and more with who she truly is, just as we're connecting more and more with who we truly are, until we can actually recognize a place within this evolutionary cycle. So are we moving out from the Kali Yuga to Sat Yuga? Are we breaking out of a world age? Some people refer to the Piscean age, moving into the Aquarian age. Are we going through massive solar, galactic, and planetary cycles? Yes, yes, yes to all of that. And where is it leading us? From a third dimensional perspective, history moves in a very straight line. There's no purpose or meaning to it. Everything happens by chance. Everything's defined as a battle between good and evil, or negative and positive forces. And you don't know. The outcome is uncertain. From a shamanic perspective, or from a multi-dimensional perspective, there's purpose behind everything. And we are part of that purpose. Why are we here in this body, in this incarnation, on this planet at this time? Is to join this purpose, to make something real, to remember who we are, to wake up and to participate, to co-create something much, much bigger than ourselves, or than our image of ourselves. So in the Inka tradition, they don't see the world in terms of negative and positive forces, negative and positive energies. What they see is that either it's moving in a fluid movement, or there's a contraction, there's a blockage, there's a breaking of the flow, which they refer to as hucha. So when everything is in flow, everything is in movement, that's referred to as sami. When there's a blockage, that's referred to as hucha. And what the shamans say is that on this planet, the only species capable of creating hucha is humans. We are the only ones that have learned how to break the flow of life, how to break that web of life. And how does that happen? It's because of our ignorance, it's because of our attachment, it's because of our resistance, it's because of our fear. We learn these things based on our conditioning from the past. We learn these things because we've been hypnotized to believe that this is true. So what any mystical or shamanic path is about is learning to dehypnotize ourselves, to remember who we are. And then we naturally begin to connect with other dimensional realities, because that's who we are. It's not that we have to achieve something. It's really more that we have to unveil what already is. The world is already in flow. The world is already in balance. There's an evolutionary purpose that's already present. Everything is interconnected already. All of that is who we are already. So it's not like we have to achieve something, become something. It's more like we have to remember and let go. And for many of us, because we've been so conditioned, it's difficult to think about letting go. It's difficult to think about surrendering, because surrendering is equal to giving up. Surrendering is equal to not having control. And what we want to hold on to is control. We need, there's this subconscious need that we have to control everything in our life. I saw this wonderful meme on FaceTube one time about one Zen monk talking to another Zen monk, and he says, "Oh, don't worry, nothing is under control." And that's basically what we are being called to recognize. We don't need to control anything. Our attachment to control comes from fear, and it comes from a lack of trust in the flow. We've stepped off the path, and therefore need to control what we think our life is about. And in our need for control, we create so much unhappiness, we create so much discordance, suffering on so many levels within ourselves, around ourselves. And we also lose the excitement of what it means to be on this earth. You know, when you let go of control, what happens is that the whole universe comes through us. You recognize that there's a synchronicity flowing through all things. Synchronicity basically means that everything is connected to everything else, and therefore everything that happens is in perfect divine plan. Nothing can happen outside of that plan. So our ideas about right and wrong are basically an illusion. Reality is not an illusion, but our ideas about reality are often an illusion. So what the Inka shaman said, and this is the first what's that word? Axiom of the shamanic tradition, is that everything is alive and everything is in flow. Everything is alive. In our way of thinking, we have assigned degrees of life to different levels of complexity. So we've placed ourselves at the top of this ladder of evolution, that we are more alive than a bug crawling on the grass, or an eagle flying through the air, or even of this entire planet that's supposedly just a dead clod of earth spinning around space. No, they say everything is alive, and therefore there's a possibility of being in communication with everything. You can communicate with the tree in your backyard. You can communicate with the birds flying through the air. You can communicate with the wind blowing through our hair. We can communicate with our own bodies. How many of you really understand our bodies? What it means to be in this cellular state of consciousness. So that ability to communicate with everything else is part of the recognition that everything is alive, everything is connected. And because everything is alive, they say that things naturally move, flow back and forth. So one of the principles is what they call Aini. So I talked about Sami, which is flow, Hucha, which is resistance to flow, and Aini, which is reciprocity. What reciprocity means is when there's a flow of energy in one direction, there's a response in the other direction. And it's very similar to the second law of thermodynamics. Inertia. When you push something, there's a response. And this is across all dimensions. So those are the three primary principles in the Inka shamanic tradition. They also talk about multi-dimensionality. So we have many different bodies, each one of us, that are linked together through the Earth's magnetic field. So the physical body, that we perceive with our physical senses. Then there's the etheric body. So when the Chinese talk about chi, or the Hindus talk about prana, or other people have different names for this, is that etheric body that's capable of linking up and bridging the physical body with the higher bodies. So prana is the energetic component of the physical body. It comes in through the breath. It comes in through the living connection with life around us. As we learn to develop that relationship with life around us, the prana flows very spontaneously through us. At a certain point, you find you don't need what we normally think we do in order to sustain ourselves. We don't need food to sustain the body. We don't need air to sustain the prana body, because we can receive directly from those entities, from those elemental forces around us. Then there's the emotional mental bodies, which are tied into a sense of who we are, the personal ego. And these three, the mental, emotional, and existential sense of self, creates the astral body. So this is really that aspect of us that can travel out through time, through space, in dreams. We receive intuitive information. We connect and communicate with forms of life around us. That's this, the hologram of the human personal self. Beyond that is the soul. And the soul is something that transcends the single physical incarnation. The soul has its own substance. It has its own way of expression. And many of us have lost touch with that, or only a very small, limited aspect of that. And the truth is, we are not the soul. We are not humans. We are the soul experiencing ourselves as humans. So the moment we start thinking that I have a soul, then it's like my primary identity has become the personal self. And when you enter into these shamanic worlds, that turns upside down. You realize that my sense of self, my I sense, is far, far beyond, far, far greater than the physical form that I tend to identify with. So that's the foundation for these teachings and practices. So in many of these indigenous cultures, life was very simple because we didn't have to try so hard to veil ourselves, to disconnect from this flow of life. And the conditioning based on the human mind has created these veils where we don't recognize ourselves anymore. So we're imposing all kinds of layers of reality on top of what's real that we are now needing to unravel, to unveil in order to remember. So what I'd like to do now at some point is to teach you a couple very simple practices to do this. So what we're going to do is slowly start stepping outside of the identification with these lower bodies and start expanding out to the soul body, and then beyond that to the self. In the Hindu tradition, when they talk about the self, it's referring to the one spirit that moves through all things. Some people would refer to this as Brahman, as God, or as divine consciousness, or whatever word we want to use, Allah, the Great Spirit. The liberating quality, the liberating aspect of these shamanic and deeper cultures is that is who we are. I am that. I am that. Not this false illusion that I'm limited, separate, and have to live in fear and constriction. I am all of that. So what we're also learning to do in these shamanic practices is learning how to expand our perceptions, expand the mind itself to be able to receive information coming in, open those perceptions, those doorways. So there's many, many levels of the mind far beyond the rational mind. And we begin to start connecting with those. At a certain point, if you find that anything that you're looking at, you're thinking about, you become that. This is the heart of the shamanic ability for shape-shifting, to be able to perceive deeply into the heart of reality. It's why you find that there's no separate being out there that's different from what's in here. And therefore, I project my consciousness. I experience that as myself. So if I'm in communication with White Feather or with Vivian or with Panchami, I am you. I become you. And therefore, I'm able to experience you in ways that the mind cannot understand. So the mind understands only in terms of outer perceptions, which is immediately followed by interpretations and judgments. When I'm directly accessing you from a soul level, there's no separation, there's no judgments, there's no sense of otherness. And imagine what it means to live from that state, to experience that everything is see, you're becoming that. How can there be any kind of fear when you truly recognize that? And when there's no fear, there's no suffering. Our relationship with the earth, our relationship with each other, our relationship with ourselves changes completely. So what all the shamanic cultures have been saying is that this time is the time of upheaval, is the time of turning right side up. It's the time of recognizing who we are. It's the time of intentionally and consciously creating a new earth and entering into Gaia's evolutionary stream. We're doing this consciously now. And this is happening spontaneously for many people because there's certain energetic vibrations that are now coming in through the Earth's magnetic field that is triggering remembrance for a lot of people spontaneously. People are having these Kundalini awakenings without even knowing what Kundalini means. People are having dreams where they enter into these amazing mystical worlds and learn how to navigate through those worlds. People are experiencing abilities that, in the past only belonged to the X-Men or to, fantasy characters, Harry Potter. But this is all becoming part of our living experience now as we drop those veils of separation. So there's a couple practices that I'd like to guide you through, where we can begin to drop those veils of separation and experience directly, energetically, what it means to be interconnected. I'll explain some of this, and then we'll do a meditation to access those multidimensional realities. So, any questions before going further? So you can always ask a question in the chat, or if you want, just raise your hand, and it could be questions, it could be your own comments, experiences. So let's just make this interactive to the extent we can. Okay. So anytime you have questions, just please, ask. Don't feel like it's going to be an interruption, because that's really about engaging each other on every level, and that includes the mind. And you'll find that just doing this one practice that I'm going to be sharing with you, if you can do this every day, it'll start opening up doorways between the worlds. Okay, so we talked about the three worlds. Yeah, so we have the middle world, which is the world of our human experience. There's the upper world. You could refer to this as the realm of soul. And there's the lower world, which is, you could say this is the world of nature that we can enter into through a cellular level of consciousness. It's very different from the mental level of consciousness. So, consciousness is one of those strange words which has, it really doesn't have any real meaning anymore, because people use it for so many different things. So as you open to the upper world, you're opening to electrical forces. When you open to the lower worlds, you're opening to magnetic forces. And this interactive stream between the electrical and magnetic forces is what allows us access to all these different realities, all these different worlds, all these different levels of the mind in multidimensional consciousness. It's that simple. It's just the access to the upper world through electrical forces, to the lower worlds through magnetic forces. And it's not even that we need to create these forces. They're there always. Just that we need to open ourselves, recognize what they are, and allow them. So remember, we talked about the principle of reciprocity. It means that once we open the door to the upper world and the electrical forces start coming through, there's a natural response from the earth where the magnetic forces start moving up in response. And then these electrical and magnetic forces start interacting, they start opening up doorways. It all happens very spontaneously and very effortlessly. So many of us have been used to doing things to get somewhere, to achieve something. And it's not about that. It's simply a way of undoing, of unlearning, of allowing. So what you're doing, as far as there is something to do, is basically opening up a door which is above the top of your head. Right. So the Inka shaman says that we are this energetic bubble. They refer to this sometimes as the luminous egg. And this luminous egg or energetic bubble, the pokpo in the Quechua tradition, it extends out to about 6 feet or 2 meters around you in each direction. So imagine that you're surrounded by this bubble of light, 6 feet out in every direction. It's multidimensional, multi-layered. If you have etheric vision, you would actually see it in terms of a sacred geometry. They refer to this as the Merkaba, and is centered at the heart. So this geometry links the physical, etheric, mental, and emotional bodies. So what you're doing as the first step is to open up this window and on top of this bubble, which then opens up a door into the upper world. What happens in response is that immediately, the moment you open that window, these electrical forces start to move in. And all the way down through these 4 bodies, through the pokpo, through the bubble, and into the earth. And then immediately again, as soon as these forces touch the earth, there's a response. And you have the magnetic forces coming up, all the way up through the bodies, up through that window, back to the sky. And then this dance of electrical and magnetic forces creates an expansion within your bubble. And your bubble itself begins to expand further and further and further out. Then you're joining with the soul body, the causal body, which is your connection with everything in creation. So from that connection, so once that connection is made, there's no limits. You can then begin to communicate with the soul of the earth. You can connect with every species of life. You can actually begin to experience each other in new ways. You can connect with the soul of the universe, that oneself that we are. So this is a very simple practice. It's basically not using effort, but using a level of allowing to make this happen. So I'll describe it, and then we'll do it together. Okay, so first thing you'll do is become aware of that bubble. So you'll feel how far out it goes. It's it's like a soap bubble. It's completely enclosed, and your physical body is right in the center of that. So you have the physical body, the etheric body is slightly out from the physical body. The emotional and mental bodies move out in this diameter, 2 meters, 6 feet around. This is your sense of personal space. This is the middle world. So that's the starting point. Then you open up this window above your head. So it's like a circular window. So imagine it like, it's not directly up above your head here. The crown chakra, as the Hindus refer to this, actually is multi-layered. It starts here, and then, some people refer to them as different chakras, the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, whatever. So the window that we're referring to is about 6 feet or 2 meters above the top of your head. So it's quite a ways above. When you open that, and the way you open that is simply by intention, just asking, seeing and allowing. So it's not like you have to push something or effort or visualize. It's not necessary. Just make it simple. So the moment you open that, it's like this powerful stream of electrical force starts coming in. So, it's like that waterfall behind me in this virtual picture. The moment you open that window, this waterfall of light starts to flow in, and it continues to flow. There's no effort. When you're standing under a waterfall, are you making an effort to allow that water to flow through you? You're just there, and it does what it does. It's exactly the same thing. Once you open that window, the electrical light force just starts to come through. One image, if you're sleeping in a room with heavy curtains, so that allows you to sleep better. It's morning, and you pull the curtains, and immediately the light rushes in. You don't have to, please, light, come into my room. The moment you pull aside those curtains, sunlight pours in. It's just like that. You open up that window, these electrical forces come in. There's a new understanding of the universe known as the electric universe theory. Some refer to this as plasma cosmology. And what they say is that everything is connected to everything across the universe through electrical forces. Everything that happens in any corner of the universe is instantaneously communicated across to the other side of the universe, everywhere in the universe, through these electrical forces. These are the electrical forces that we're calling in. You might feel them as they come in. So you might feel it as a prickling, tingling energy. Or you may not. It doesn't matter. All you're doing is keeping that window open with your intention and just allowing. So just like, in that picture behind me, all you're doing is getting to that waterfall, standing underneath and letting it flow through. All right, so here's this electrical force, very high vibrational frequency. It pours in, and the moment it moves through the lower bodies, it starts to release hucha. So hucha, remember, is whenever the sami, or the flow of universal energy, gets blocked. It gets blocked through our fears, it gets blocked through our resistance, it gets blocked through traumas, emotional traumas from the past, anything that we're holding in our body that resists the truth of who we are. So it could be mental conditioning, or it could be physical. We all have miasms in the body based on traumas from the past, disease patterns, cellular limitations. They're mentally based because the mind creates a sense of limitation which the body reflects. So this hucha exists on many levels. So as the light comes in, it starts to release the hucha, to dissolve the hucha as it moves down into the earth. And you'll feel this happening. You may not even know what is going on, and you don't need to. You just trust that there's something going on. You'll feel it on some level as it moves down into the earth. And then there's a response from the earth. There's a magnetic flow. This magnetic force is very nurturing. You feel this as a heavy energy, dense, unconditional love and healing. So this is the energy of the earth. So that's why when you're in nature, after some time, you just feel so relaxed and open, connected. And, it's just so open, because that's what this magnetic energy is about. So you don't need another window beneath your feet because of that principle of reciprocity. So when you're opening up this window, the electrical forces come down. They naturally then begin to, it naturally begins to reciprocate the magnetic forces moving up. So it's just as simple as that. And then you just remain in that double flow. And then gradually what starts to happen is that bubble that you started off with begins to expand. And you feel that. You'll feel how that expands out. You can go as far as you want. You can go anywhere you wish. You can feel yourself as the earth. You become the earth. All forces of life and all species on this planet are part of you. You are that. So then you're no longer experiencing yourself, identifying yourself as a separate human. You become the earth. You become the solar system. You become the galaxy and beyond. So it's simple and it's powerful. So if you like, I'll guide you through that. And then afterwards, maybe we could just share what you've been experiencing. So is that clear? Any questions? Anything unclear? Okay. Okay, so at first you can do it as a meditation. After you've practiced it a while, you find that you naturally start living from the state of multidimensionality. You don't have to keep opening that window all the time. So it's like it just becomes something your body learns how to do. All right. So make yourself comfortable, whatever that means for you. And now become aware of this bubble of light that completely surrounds the physical body. It extends out about 6 feet or 2 meters in all directions. And the physical body is right in the middle of this. This bubble extends out in every direction, around, above, and below. Just get a sense of it. This is the middle world. This is the personal space of your human identity. This is the field through which your emotional, mental, etheric, and physical bodies interact with each other, where you hold the memories of who you have been in this incarnation. It's your sense of self as a human being in this incarnation. And now imagine that at the very top of this bubble, so about 6 feet, directly over the top of your head, there's a window. So it's a circular window, similar to the diaphragm of a camera. It can be opened and closed at will. And you're opening this now as wide as you can. Just with your intention. And the moment you open that window, you experience these tremendous forces of light, these electrical vibrations pouring in and through all these 4 bodies, across this bubble, including your physical body, and down into the earth. And as this electrical sami continues to flow down, it also begins to dissolve and release different layers of hucha. And you don't need to know what these levels and layers are. It's happening on a in a space beyond the rational mind. So just like a waterfall cleansing, purifying your physical body, your auric system, the sami pouring in is doing the same thing. You're feeling that vibrational force. You might experience it as a tingling, a pulsing, a vibrating, especially around the scalp region. But there's no effort involved. simply allowing, noticing, relaxing, and breathing. Any hucha that gets released goes right down into the earth, where Mother Earth can receive this and transform it. That's her job. You just sit with this for a couple of minutes. All you're doing is keeping that window open. So if you're not feeling something, open that window wider. Don't fret about it. Don't think so much. Just keep that window open. No expectations of exactly what you think should happen. You're connecting with the natural flow of universal life energy. And now, now remember that principle of Aini, or reciprocity. So notice now that as soon as this electrical force moves down through your feet into the earth, there's a response. So from deep within the earth, this rising of this magnetic force comes up through your feet, up through your physical body, up through your etheric, emotional, and mental bodies, up through that entire bubble, and then moving up through that window to the sky. So this fountain of magnetic force rises up from the earth in direct response to the electrical forces pouring in from the universe. And you're experiencing this fountain of light, this magnetic force coming up through every cell, every aspect of your being. Just allow yourself to be held by the nurturing, loving, sustaining energies of Mother Earth. Deeply healing, deeply relaxing. It's like a tree finding its roots, going deep inside and into the earth. Some of you may experience this as heat or heaviness. It's like a heaviness where you feel deeply rooted into the earth, where it may become difficult to even move or think. Your mind enters into the state of silence, peace, like a still, calm lake. And so now you have the magnetic forces moving up, the electrical forces moving down. They're interacting with each other throughout this bubble. They're opening up the doorways to the upper world, to the lower world. And you're experiencing yourself now as a multidimensional being. And as this happens, you find that this bubble itself begins to expand, going further and further out, very spontaneously, very naturally. As the bubble expands, the window widens, which allows even more of these electrical and magnetic forces to move through, allowing even more of the hucha to release. You find yourself entering deeper and deeper into a flow, into that sami, which defines your place in the universe. You find yourself expanding out into the space around you, as far out as you wish. Out beyond your home, out beyond the landscape where you find yourself. Whether you're in a city, whether you're out in some rural countryside, expanding out through the ecosystems around you, out beyond national borders and continents, across the seas and skies. All you're doing is keeping that window open wider and wider. And you find yourself expanding further and further. You become the earth. You experience all the ecosystems of life, the planetary web inside you. You are the earth. Here, what's happening now is that as you enter into that soul body, this fifth body, the human soul and the planetary soul become one. On a soul level, there's no separation. It's simply holographic presence. And if you wish, you can continue to expand further and further out, wherever you place your attention. You feel yourself becoming one with the solar system. Expanding out across the planets. Far beyond what the Hubble or whatever this probes are called, not the Hubble, the Voyager, Viking, forget. You feel yourself crossing the boundaries of the solar system. out into the galaxy, expanding out through different star systems. Each star becoming a single cell in your galactic body. Across these filaments of electrical force, the plasma that permeates across the universe. You find yourself going out beyond time and space restrictions, out beyond our Milky Way galaxy into intergalactic space. Each galaxy becoming a single cell in your cosmic body. Imagine yourself now crossing the boundaries of the universe, the physical universe. Imagine yourself going beyond the borders of time and space. Imagine the entire universe existing within you as the primordial self. That is who you are. That universal presence, I am. So you're simultaneously experiencing yourself now as primordial consciousness, as a universal self, and at the same time experiencing yourself in human form, in human body, in human consciousness. Remember, as above, so below. As within, so without. There's no inside or outside anymore. Everything is holographic. Everything is fractally connected. Microcosm, macrocosm, all the same. That is who you are. Notice the vibrational frequency is running through your body, through all the bodies. Notice what's going on inside your heart, inside your brain, in this human form. As you continue to expand out further and further, experiencing yourself as the universal self, you're also opening up to levels of mind far beyond the physical, rational mind. To levels of mind in the upper world, as well as levels of mind in the lower world. Don't think about what that means. Just experience this continual state of expansion. an expansion that's also at the same time deeply grounded. The magnetic forces coming up from the earth are also very healing. So wherever there's a release of hucha, these magnetic forces fill that space with healing light, with a sense of remembrance and recognition of who you truly are, releasing any fears, limitations, resistance, attachment. So the entire ocean can now come through you. This great ocean that is the living universe can come through this tiny little human form, which is at the same time everything, everywhere. So just stay in this space for a while, keeping that window open, allowing it to open wider and wider and wider. When we're connected with the flow, everything is in perfection. Everything is always in perfection. And if we can recognize that, we can trust this flow, allow it passage in every aspect of our being, and begin to experience the world of synchronicity, where all things come together for good in flow, in perfect divine flow. You find yourself always in the right place at the right time with the right people, right circumstances, because it's simply part of what it means to be in flow. There's no force, there's no effort. It's a natural, spontaneous, allowing, energizing flow. Watch your breath. Notice how your breath has been changing. Notice sensations in your body as you surrender to this flow of Sami. And keep that window open. And notice that you can keep that window open no matter what state of consciousness you're in. So you don't need to be in a meditative state to have that window open. This is what it means to be multidimensional. You can be walking down the street, talking with somebody, eating your food, whatever you consider as normal human activities, writing, speaking. But there's a new level of inspiration, connectedness that flows through you. So as you feel ready, just open your eyes and keep that window open. Notice you might still feel that sense of expansion, a sense of grounded, rooted connection with the earth. You're still connected to the upper world and to the lower world. And then whenever you'd like to share something from your experience, feel free to do so. You can just unmute yourself and just speak up. Sometimes it's not so easy to speak.
Thank you, Kiara. That was really a very unusual experience. And it was initially, I think, it took a little time and effort to disengage the thinking mind and stay present with what is happening. And there were moments where I did feel that very powerful electrical surge. And perhaps the magnetic forces as well. And I stopped thinking after some time because I got caught up for a while in, is this electrical, is this magnetic, where is it touching in my body?
Right.
How do I feel it? And in letting that go was, what was very interesting was I got a lot of visuals. There were a lot of visuals that were coming my way that were in part distracting, but in part also part of the experience. And some seemed, I don't know what they were, but some seemed more like maybe similar vibrations close by, and I was just getting them as visuals. I don't know. So that was very unusual.
Thank you.
I also wanted to share that I felt extremely thirsty after the meditation.
Yeah, it's like all those electrical energies flowing through. So I want to remind everybody it's really important to drink a lot of water during and after.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nuba. What else?
Hello, Kiara. Hi.
Hey,
Hi, this is Pallavi. It was
hey, Pallavi.
wonderful. Hi, it was wonderful. And
Great.
uh, I think some blockages got like released from my root
Mm,
chakra.
mm,
And I could see some like star-like thing, like with six petals like that, like a star. Uh, it was like golden color, something like that. Like,
mm.
like, and it was wonderful, relaxing.
Mm. Beautiful.
Thank,
Thank you,
thank you.
Pallavi. Anything else?
Uh, Hi, Kiara.
Hi, Panchami.
This is yeah. Like I could feel the electric thing on my for what crown chakra, and
Mm,
when you said that magnetic, I could feel it in my pelvic bone, like sudden connection
mm,
in from earth. And when you said like expanding till the universe or something, like I couldn't see anything, but my face gave expressions like I was awestruck. Suddenly, I smiled and I was like, "Wow, ah,
mm,
and it was really relaxing and peaceful." Thank you.
mm. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me also, different people will experience it differently. So don't feel like it has to be only one way. So, for some people, it's more visual. With some people, it's more kinesthetic or more sensory, somatic. Some people just, you'll feel your physical form actually expanding out, like Arjuna experienced with Krishna. You just become one with everything, are everything, experience everything, and it's overwhelming. So, and also as you practice this more and more, every time is different. And it's like, the rational mind starts to drop away, and then something beyond that takes over. It's like you're entering into this great ocean of consciousness.
Hi, Kiara. This is Tanis. How are you?
Hi, Dennis.
This is the first time I actually sit in this group. I usually attend other circles with Meenakshi. Wanted to thank you for this experience and particularly for speaking so eloquently about the Inka shamanic tradition.
Mm.
I spent a little time up in the highlands of the Andes with some beautiful souls, but I really have been grateful to hear your words. The way you explain it is it has a flow. It has a Sami to it. I'm a big believer in Aini, and I learned through Aini in the middle world, in seeing the farmers doing exchange, and particularly reciprocity with the water.
Yeah.
As you were guiding us through this wonderful exercise, I could not but think of the water and the importance of water. You mentioned it when Anuva was mentioning how thirsty she got, and how water connects all these energetic fields, and at the end of the day, how the magnetic and the electric just flows through the water and vice versa. So just wanted to thank you. So it's been a wonderful experience, and I hope to be joining further of your discussions as Meenakshi continues to co-create in this beautiful space. So thank you.
Thank you, Tanis. I'm touched. Anything else? So these practices, and there's other practices also. By the way, there's a book I wrote called Homo Luminous, which is the Inca term for the next species that we're emerging into. They also speak about Gaia Luminous, which is the new Earth. So Homo Luminous has a lot of these Inca practices. So if you can find that on Amazon or someplace and want to take a look, please do so. Gaia Luminous is another book, which is looking at the more contextual aspects of this from many, many different perspectives. So check that out on our website or on Amazon. Take a look at my YouTube channel, Kiara Windrider. There's a number of other meditations and practices there, and also on my website, kiarawindrider.net. And the most important thing with practices like this is that you're training your body. So it's not like you're doing something from, trying to visualize something or creating some kind of burden for the mind. Once the body knows how to do this, it snaps into it instantly. So the moment you wish to, or are in fact sitting across from a person or out in nature, the window opens. There's other practices that, at some point I'd be happy to share with the circle. Is where you can begin to transmute. You become an alchemist. And wherever there's hucha in the world around you, you begin to naturally transmute that by taking that hucha into your belly and down into the earth, and then transmuting it with flow, with sami, which then pours out through your heart. And again, it's an effortless practice. The koskonawi, which is at the belly, opens up in response to your intention. And then what happens is that people start experiencing that, sensing that all around. You could be walking through the streets, someone's in pain, and they notice that something is lifted. They may not even know what's going on because it's not coming from this level of the mind. So it's just part of our, journey as alchemists on this earth. So what I would invite people to do is take 10 minutes every day at a fixed time, in a fixed place. So when you're in one place every day at the same time, it's like you're engaging that cellular mind. And then the cellular mind takes over. You're inviting elemental spirits to enter into the sacred space you've created. When you're doing it at the same time in the same space, it's like you're actually setting a sacred container for yourself within that time space. So it's like you're making an appointment with the universe. And then without even trying, it just starts to happen. The first few times you may, you do that intentionally, you're experiencing that bubble, you're opening the window, and then you find after a while, just that thought, that intention, everything opens up. And then you start learning how to communicate with various forces of life. You open that window and you invite something, maybe a spirit animal, to come in through that window into your auric space. Sense what that's about. Sense if there's a message that you receive. What feelings start coming up for you. So it's like you're developing feelers going out into the universe. You become more and more of the universe.
Thank you, Kiara, and everyone. It's just a wonderful experience and a wonderful spiritual practice. And as with all spiritual practices, you find it so much easier and so much natural, or, so natural that you don't have to necessarily use any particular triggers like alarm clocks. It just happens. And it's very nice. So thank you for that. That was just wonderful. And thank everyone because you contributed to this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Yeah, thank you all. And thank you, Andrina, for hosting this. Thank you to Meenakshi for holding this circle for all of us.